Hi, I'm Roy Collin, and welcome to the show. I've got 6 podcasts, as you'll see behind me. A speaking podcast where I'm talking to speakers, coaches, authors, and even marketers. I've got the meditation podcast where I'm talking about meditation, breath work, yoga, chakras. I've got a load of meditations from 1 minute to 2 hours. I've got the Learn Polish podcast, and the episodes are about 5 to 10 minutes, and we deal with everyday topics like going to the dentist and things like that. The Awakening podcast is where I'm exposing fraud and corruption, but with solutions. And I've had guests like Mickey Willis, Dr. Peter McCullough, David Icke, and Thomas Rentz. The Crypto podcast is where I'm exposing fraud and corruption in the crypto blockchain technology. So about cryptos and NFTs, but also on the good things and how to invest safely. And finally, the Podfather, which you see there on my t-shirt, the podfather.me, is where I'm helping podcasters either to start a podcast or existing podcasters how to grow their audience. And most of the episodes are short, but they're good tips that will help you improve your show. I also have a store on all of my podcasts, so you can go in. There's some of my products and also some of the affiliates that I do, and that helps me with the show. You'll find everything on bio.link/podcaster. And I'm also helping people start a podcast as well as doing a podcast tour. So you'll find everything on the link there. I'd like to thank my sponsor, DanielPacker.com. He's helping people with fear, doubt, and anxiety. He's got a 90% success rate, and you only pay if he helps you. So be sure to check him out, DanielPackard.com. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Be sure to comment on the social media and let us know what you think. You don't always have to agree, but as long as it's not abusive, the comment will stay up. Welcome to the Speaking, Awakening, and Meditation podcast. My guest is an innovator, certified coach, trainer, and generalist. With his life's experience and thirst for knowledge, he has created BrainGym.fitness. But not only that, he's a good friend of mine and a partner. Please welcome Arnold Beekes. Did I do?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not easy Dutch for a lot of people, but it's really good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. And I mean, you're from Holland, obviously, but you're currently residing in Romania. So,
Correct.
we're going to talk about aspirin addiction or architect all of a choice. But there's a lot of things, but I want people to kind of know, first of all, who's Arnold?
That's what I would like to know as well. Huh? um, but essentially, well, it's maybe even hard to start with this in a podcast, but I like the phrase which was being used actually already by the Greeks more than 2,000 years ago, when they had for certain people a practice which they called die before you die. And what that meant was that you die to your old way of living and being and create a new way before you would physically die. So it's kind of a mental and emotional dying before you, and that you start to live in a real new way. And that is the main thing in my life. It was not consciously, but that is what happened. I grew up in a very compliance, conformity based environment at home. Later on, I worked for very large corporations, and that ended at the beginning of my 40s. And then my search, well, that first, let's call it 40 years for ease of thing, is that is what I call fitting in. That is living according to the expectations of other people. Is that you constantly do what other people expect you to do. That starts first with your parent, then at school or university with your teachers, then, for the most part, with your bosses. Is it's always other people who want you to do and behave in a certain way. So, and if I would do what these other folks would require me to do it, then I would be a good guy. And if I didn't do it, well, they would kick me out, then I would have a problem. That is what I call fitting in. After my 40s, I was literally kicked out. It was like what I call flying out, is like where a whole new part of my life started. And that is, well, you could say I was dying to the old Arnold, because the old Arnold was conformity, complying to what these other folks wanted of me. And I was actually very good at that. Right? That started already at a young age. My father was a military officer, so there were no arguments. You just 100% had to do what he said. Huh? And that continued, and in this way, I made a career and had some leadership roles in tech companies. When that ended, I really started to figure out, but who am I? What do I want? What is my interest? What do I want to do in the world? Why am I here in this world? All of these questions, which were never asked to me, and when they were asked, I had no clue. That is what I call from fitting in to flying out. And that is what is also, that is what meant by that, die before you die, is like, I died kind of to the old Arnold, because the old Arnold was just an obedient servant of other people. And in the flying out, I started to live my own life. Who I am, what I want to contribute, how do I want to help people? Yeah, and that is kind of a long-winded answer to your question. Is like, who am I? But it's like there was an old I, an old Arnold, and there's a new Arnold, and that really, I think, very well symbolized by die before you die.
I think, I mean, I know for me, it was kind of losing everything, but from meeting a lot of people, and sometimes it's like when you tell your story, a lot of people kind of hold it back. They don't want to tell people what's really happened. But it's like when you go through a major transformation in your life, something bad happens, whatever it is, whether it's divorce, where you lose everything, whatever. But then you start to question everything, and you kind of start, I mean, I started looking back on at times like the schooling system. Why were they making us fold our arms, put our finger up to our mouth, and just at 4 years of age, just sit there when I look at the children today and they're allowed to run around, they're allowed to play arts, they're allowed to enjoy themselves. It's not all schools are like that, but it's like I started questioning everything. And why was it that memory was the only important thing when they didn't care about other skill sets that you had?
Absolutely. But the main thing, which, no, it's not the main thing. It's a lot of things, actually. But the thing which is a real common denominator throughout my life is that in that first part of my life, and I said that already started at home, you were always taught that you were not good enough. You're always taught, and the focus was on mistakes and faults and everything. This was not good, and this was not good enough, and this should be better, and this should be better. Yeah. Like I said, at home, at school, where's the focus? The focus is not you have 7 questions good. No, you get 3 fault. Hmm? Uh, with the boss, I can still recall, and it was by then one of the largest IT companies in the world, and I had my first performance review with my boss. It was an hour performance review, and in an official setting, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what's going to happen. He was the marketing manager. I was a marketing specialist. And literally for 50 minutes, he was talking about things which I could have done better or in his eyes different. So during that conversation, I get the feeling like I'm going to get kicked out. Yeah, it's just after 1 year with it, he's like, this is not good. I have a problem. I have a major problem here. And then he gave me my rating, which was, I still know it was a 5-point system. and my rating was usually exceeds requirements, a UER. And I was totally confused. I was like, dude, you've been saying for 50 minutes that everything could have been done different and otherwise. And now you give me one, well, hardly anyone get that rating. It's like one of the highest ratings in my first year. I get a 10% salary increase. And I'm like, I was totally confused. That means is that the focus is everywhere is like, they can control people. They can control people by fear and by constantly telling you that you're not good enough.
Just on that, because I want to kind of elaborate a bit, because as you were saying that, it brought me back because I was running a big project in it was a Johnson & Johnson project, and it was the biggest builder that was there was, and like we were doing the mechanical, and like I remember the director of this massive company, we'd all sit around with the client and everything, and I would have so much done for things to progress the project, like way better than anybody, and one thing wouldn't be done. And the guy would just start screaming and make that the topic of the meeting. And it's like I see that happen with a lot of businesses and everything. It's sad. Like they never go, brilliant, well done. You just made us an extra million profit. No. It's like where can I beat you with a baseball bat? And like if you talk to any like most people that I know that are working in corporations, they all hate it. They hate the boss, they hate the systems, they hate the whole kind of process.
Yeah, but that is why when I started to see that telling people their mistakes, their faults, even if they were tiny, and blow them up, yeah, and telling them constantly they're not, that was essentially what it was. That it is a tool to control you, and that it's got nothing to do with you, Roy, as a person or as an employee. It is basically how everyone is trained. Also, those managers and those people is like, hey, you want to control people? Tell them what's wrong. Because then people are shrink and they're like, ooh, I get kicked out. I lose my job. Yeah, I can't pay my mortgage. It's like, yeah, so that is the tool to control you. But I took it like many, I took it personally like, oh, there's something wrong with Arnold. Arnold didn't perform right. I'm not good enough. Well, basically, it's got nothing to do with it. It's just their tool to do is like, hey, look, I'm the boss. I'm in a position to tell you what is wrong. Yeah? So, like that boss who told me in 50 minutes all the things which were lousy in his opinion and gave me one of the highest ratings ever. And in that process, I started to see that to distract, like, hey, it is a tool which people use and they use it, I would say, even subconsciously. It's not, they don't want to ruin you, but that's just how you're taught to be a manager. Huh? And most people don't think about it. It's like, no, I have a review, I got the performance, I got to tell them what's wrong. Oh yeah, and at the end you got to tell them what's good. Mm-hmm. They even call it a sandwich technique. Yeah, give them the bad news and then up front and at the end a little bit positive. Huh? But the whole goal is that they stay in control. Because they're not going to say, hey, by the way, I think you're more clever than I am. And that you can grow past me and that you can do much more for our company. No, that's not what they're going to say. So my kind of awakening, which you started with questioning, and for me it was like a huge shift where I took things personally and like, no, it's just a control tool. It's got nothing to do with me.
Wait, I mean, I've worked deeply with you going through some of the programs, and to be honest with you, they were mind blowing for me. They were like so good, and I just want to. You probably don't want me telling people your age, but I think you look fantastic. you're 65, yeah, and like even people that they think you look a lot younger than you are. And I mean, I was even saying, I mean, I went gray in my 40s. Like you can see you're not gray either, which is fantastic. But it's like you're conscious of everything you do. So maybe we could just touch on some of the stuff that like I know that you cover, because for me and even the team, like just by me being in the conversation with you, it was like I wish I had access to this and understood this in my 20s. But then I go, at least I know now, as opposed to not knowing at all. Because there's plenty of people I know my age that don't understand this or don't practice this and everything. So like we might just kind of touch on a few of the stuff, like I suppose like the paradox of relationships, because at the end of the day, we're not just talking about spouse and stuff like that. Relationships are everybody we're connected with.
That is basically where is it a movie called Heidi, You're Alone in the World or something like that? But it's like we're not alone in the world. There are 8 billion other people. There are animals, plants, bacteria, whatever. So we, whether we want it or not, every time of the week we're dealing with other people. Hmm? And these other people are what I call the paradox is that they're the source of inspiration, the source of feeling good, of having fun, of enjoying yourself. But they're also the source of much sorrow and unhappiness and sadness. So, but that's both in relationship, both can be the case. The main understanding is I can tie it back into the fitting in, is that most people behave outwardly different than what is happening inward. So you say one thing or you do one thing which is different than what you think, what you feel. And that's what makes communication so difficult, because we express things which are expected of us. And we say, yes, of course, yes, I agree, and yes, it's fine, and yes, it looks good. Well, inside ourselves, we think, well, that is really shit. Let me tell you an example which I had years ago when I was responsible for a big airline to do some kind of a change program. And I asked one of the middle managers and I said, are you ready for the change? Did you prepare your department? Is everything cool? And fortunately, he was very honest and he said, Arnold, yes, I'm ready. I've changed the name of my department because now it's got another name. And he said, for the rest, I'm just doing exactly the same as what I did for 15 years. Yeah. That was an honest response. Most of the people would say, yes, of course I'm ready. And I like it. And the change is good. Well, they think, well, it's just bullshit. And that is the problem with relationship. And I'm not blaming anyone because I played that game as well myself, is that the main problem is outwardly we behave in a certain way as we are expected to be. Remember, we're living someone else's life. But inwardly, we feel and do something else. And that gets into confusing messages.
Choosing healthy habits. I mean, that's something that I've kind of, I think it's a continuous learning process for that one, because even prior to recalling it, talking, I was saying that I always took the Kerrygold butter because I thought grass fed better. And then I find out now there's a big court case against them because there's some toxins in it or whatever. Just so it's like, but to be conscious of it and then just make a pivot. But you might touch on the healthy habits as well.
Any change, whether it's small or huge or tremendous or mid-range, it doesn't matter, is just by saying it or having the attention or but mainly doing it once is like I stopped drinking alcohol. By just saying that, having that intention and expressing that to yourself, not much changes. Yeah. So, because most habits are going to replace an old habit. Yeah. So habits involve, like, you got to stop with one habit and replace it with another one. So that is two things. You got to stop doing the old thing and you got to add the new thing. So it's two things where you need your attention. That takes energy and time. That is why it's really useful to have habits, because those habits means preferably you got to do it every day or every week or whatever, and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. Yeah, around, there's some saying about 21 days. I think not all times it's longer. It's like those habits help you to stay really focused and make that new habit is like, I don't drink alcohol, to an old habit is like, I drink alcohol every day. By the way, that was me. Yeah, and just by saying it, we're doing. No, you need to create that habit. So that is why habits are really useful. I think all of us, each morning, you brush your teeth. You like brushing your teeth? Are you looking forward to brushing your teeth? No, it's just a habit. Yeah? So habits are good, because once it's a healthy habit, you can maintain doing it and you don't even need to think about it.
And I mean, even with, like, say, drinking, the people say, oh, they drink a lot or they don't drink at all. But like, it was when I had a guest on and she was talking about grey drinking, and I was like, I fall into that category where it's like most days you're kind of having a few glasses of wine with your dinner, or a few beers when you're having the barbecue, and it's just kind of, and it's like, when you make a conscious decision to say, hey, this is kind of catching up me, and go off it for a month, 2 months, or whatever. One, you start losing weight. Two, your mind becomes a lot clearer. You get way more productive. And it's like, I think it's just to be kind of asking yourself, why am I doing this? Because there's positive and negative habits. And I think that's a negative habit. And for how, like, what I do is, like, I'd have the water and I'd have some cider vinegar. And I often sit down and I go, I'm enjoying this just as much, or a really good quality tea. And it's like, why do I fall into this? And it's just to be conscious and not go back into the trap.
Yeah, you're touching on something really important, is that we have way more habits than we know. If I ask you, is like, how many habits you have? Well, I don't even know myself, but I tell you, they're much more than what you anticipate. The same thing is true for your beliefs. We'll get to that later, but it's like probably hundreds. Yeah? And the only way to change things is it starts with your show is what you call awakening, what I call awareness. Is like, you have to be aware that you're maybe drinking a little bit too much, and that you want to change that. And then you have to trigger yourself in that period between having an old habit which you have to stop, which and ramping up a new one. That requires all of your attention. That's why you need to write it down in what I call your daily rituals. It is like, your daily rituals is nothing more than, let's say, a personal checklist, which you can put on your phone, you can even type it up, you can write it down, it doesn't matter, but it's like new things or things you want to pay attention to in that particular day. And then at the end of the day, you kind of review it, but maybe you get new habits, like I go to bed on time or whatever. So it's like, you need that attention because, well, what is a habit is kind of an autopilot. So there's an in-between period where you got to disrupt one autopilot and build a new autopilot. That is why you need in between what I call these daily rituals to focus you. Is like, hey, remember, today I'm not going to drink. And that's not to control you or whatever. It's really necessary, because it is difficult, because some habits you might have been doing for decades.
So, other one is daring to be unique. I mean, I think we're both unique, and not complaint that you fit into the kind of, I suppose you go into the machine and you just chug along in life, and then you just go into the grave. Like, and I think you have to make an effort as well to be unique, and just be conscious of it, that you are.
I think it's a foundational pillar to the work what I'm doing, is that by fitting in, by living the life of someone else, you're forced to behave and be and do the same as other people. So the focus is on sameness. It's like you're the same. Yeah? You're supposed to eat the same type of food like your people. You're supposed to drive a similar car. You're supposed to wear the similar clothes. Yeah? So even in business, whatever, it's all similar. It's all the same. Yeah? You're all merged into one thing, like it is the same. To me, that is one of the biggest cause of misery. The biggest cause of misery is like, no, you're not the same. It's not only Roy and Arnold, what you just said is unique. Everyone who's listening, all the 8 billion people in the world are unique. But they behave in the same way because they're living someone else's life. And that is literally killing people. Our bodies are different. Well, that's why they take fingerprints, face recognition. That's why you and I could eat the same diet, and you could gain weight and I could lose weight, or the other way around. It's like your body, everything, your cell, everything is totally different. So by recognizing that you are different, a whole new world opens for you. And what I want you to do is to unleash your uniqueness, because your uniqueness has been in a prison. What I use the word straitjacket. We're all put in this straitjacket of sameness. What does a straitjacket do? It limits you. You cannot move, you cannot run, maybe you can hardly breathe, you cannot eat, or whatever. To unleash your uniqueness is to remove the straitjacket. Remove the straitjacket of sameness is like, no, I Arnold, I Roy, I Pete, I Trudy, is like, I'm different. And what is my uniqueness? And how can I use my uniqueness? Your uniqueness, everybody's uniqueness, that is what we need in the world. Because we've been following and doing all the same things, and look where we end. Our society is a mess. Our environment is a mess. Tell me anything which is not a mess. That's because we're trying to do the same. In business, they call it business practices. That's why it's not working. Because even businesses are different. We should be using our uniqueness. But first, recognize that we're unique.
And I mean, just based on what you said there, the thing is, because of what's going on in the world, and everyone is kind of seeing it now, and it's regurgitating, and we don't, the way the media is kind of manipulated and everything, when you actually have people that are working to their kind of full potential and uniqueness and coming together, that's how you make massive change.
Yes, that is what I call united uniqueness. Uniqueness doesn't mean egoistic. It doesn't mean it's my way or the highway. No, it's like, I call it, where the situation in which we're now in our society, I call it a convergence of changes. There are a lot of changes on many different areas, socially, environmentally, politically, health-wise. You can name anything. But these are not in a silo. They interact with each other and they have an impact. So I call it the convergence of changes. We never been throughout history in such a situation as we are now. So the only way to come to solutions to address this is we need unique perspectives. And we need each and everyone's talents and skills, unique talents and skills, to help come to a solution. And it's not a solution. It's like, okay, let's do what we did 3 years ago there, or what happened 5 years ago there, or yesterday there. No, it's going to have to be something totally different. The only way to address that, I call it united uniqueness. Use everyone's uniqueness to come up with something which works for everyone.
So I think most people have heard the saying, curiosity killed the cat. But learning requires curiosity, and I know you touch on that as well.
Yes, that is, when you say curiosity killed the cat, it's a saying which I think is in most cultures, is that they don't like children to be curious. Because when a child asks, is like, why is the sky blue? And the parents don't have an answer, is like, you feel a bit embarrassed. So it's like, oh, you're curious, that's not good. Huh? But the same is in business. It's like, yeah, we're going to change this and do this and blah, blah. Why is that? Just do as I say. So everywhere, curiosity is discouraged. Yeah. And I think the basis of learning, but the basis also to enjoy your life, to have fun, to explore, to grow, to learn, is new things. The most boring life is if you do, let's say you're grown up and for 60 years, you every day eat the same, you meet the same people, you watch the same TV programs, is it like, yeah, that is boring. In the end, I think it's even killing people. Yeah? So what makes your life spicy and interesting and cool and fun and inspiring is curiosity. Why do people like to read about, throughout history, explorers, whether it was Columbus or Magellan or up to like people are exploring who built the pyramids in Egypt? Everybody find that interesting. So I think it's a natural thing. That's one of the main things I think in which we humans are different from animals and other species. It is like we're curious. We like to learn. We like to grow. So there's nothing more motivating and inspiring to be curious. So I don't think curiosity kills the cat. I think curiosity saves the cat.
Like anytime I hear somebody saying, I'm bored, I go, I wish you could outsource your time, because I wish I had more time in the day to get done what I do. Because even you mentioned, like the pyramids, it's like there's pyramids in Antarctica. It's like, I want to know way more about that. I want to know why we're not allowed go there. Why, all the countries have a treaty that you can't even explore it. No, and the Tartarian Empire. I know we've had conversation. I like all that stuff is fascinating to me, and just reading and just kind of knowledge, continuous learning. And it's like, but as you mentioned, people chug through life, and the downside of that is like, just based on everything that you've said so far. Because I remember when I was working in Ireland, there was a few people that they were like working all their life, then they'd retire, and there was like that was their plan to kind of then live their life. But because that was their life, within 3 months they were dead. And I think everybody knows somebody like that, that they kind of knew that this person worked hard all their life, and once they finish their job. So it's like, I think that's their quest for life dies, and they have put their emphasis on their job, and that was their whole living, instead of opening it up to other things.
Yes, and the end is, I don't want to be judgmental because I think that is a consequence of living someone else's life. That is boring. Yeah, because you already know what your boss is going to say, or in some aspects, your spouse or your teacher or whatever. It's like you try to minimize your effort because you don't do what you want to do. You do something what your boss wants you to do. So there's a whole other discussion for another topic is about whether laziness is built in or not. But the main thing is, I think it's quite logical that people are lazy if you live someone else's life. So you're not doing anything extra to explore or to learn or to grow. It's like, well, if my boss doesn't ask me, it's fine. That is why a lot of people, unfortunately not enough, they got a lot of hobbies outside of work. And that's where they are curious. Yes, I don't know why, but think about the guys who are holding pigeons, and they have these games where a pigeon, who's the fastest pigeon going from A to B. Huh? Yeah, it is a sport in itself. By the way, there's a lot of money involved. So these folks would like to learn everything. Is like, how can I make my pigeon faster and train them faster or whatever. Whereas at their work, they're like, I'm not interested in learning anything. That changes once they set up a business for special nutrition for pigeons. I tell you, the whole laziness, the whole not being curious is totally gone.
One thing that used to frustrate me when I was working is when you'd ask somebody something and they'd say, I only get paid from the neck down. And it's like, it's such a sad statement to say that about yourself. Like,
Yeah, but that is sad for all of us. Yeah. And it's sad for society, it's sad for relationships, it's sad for that. But that is what we're trying to do by making people the same, by people fitting in and say, hey, yeah, do exactly as I tell you to do. That discourages all the things which are fun and interesting in life.
so emotions, Arnold, expressing emotions, how important is that?
Again, it's looks like a comedy denominator in the things what we're discussing, because what we're discussing is actually we do one thing, but we rather should be doing the opposite. Huh? And with emotions, it's even more flagrant. Is that we are taught, and it's, well, even more men than women, is like you're not supposed to show emotions. Men don't cry. You're supposed not to be angry. You're supposed to be, yeah. So from a very young age, yeah, even if you fall and you hurt your knee, you're not supposed to cry. Oh, I got my knee. Shut up. Yeah. So it's like, so what we do is like, it's really like a ball into the water. Is we suppress our emotions, and well, I've been doing that, well, maybe even for more than 50 years, I tell you. It's like, it becomes a habit. We talked about habit. It is a habit. It's like we're suppressing our emotions. We're not listening to them. But what is happening? Sooner or later, that ball which you press in the pool and you press it on the water, at some point in time, it becomes too heavy and you cannot hold it anymore and it explodes. Huh? In case of emotions, it explains like maybe you become very, very angry. I think a big cause is maybe cancer. It's like because you've been suppressing such unhealthy negative energy that looks for a way out. Yes, a simple thing which you experience yourself and I experience as well is that we had, and I know many people who get back pain. Many people who get back pain. No, I'm sitting too long, I'm this and that. What ends is that it's not a physical deficit. It's a psychological thing. One of the main things is suppressing those emotions. Telling your boss that it's fine and that you're good and that you love his plans and his ideas and you think they're great. They're the best thing in the world after sliced bread. Whereas you think, well, completely bullshit what the boss said today. That hurts you. So it's just like with curiosity. It's just like uniqueness versus sameness. It's like suppressing your emotions is not good. That doesn't mean you have to beat everyone up which you disagree with. That's not what I'm saying. Yeah, but it's like.
But you feel better when you do that, Arnold.
Yeah, sometimes it could be, but it's like at least express them to yourself, and at least know that you're suppressing them, and that already gives you more relief, and it helps you to start understanding who you are and what you value, what you find important, what you don't find important, what you like, what you don't like. If we're just always suppressing our emotions, we become robots. My main why is people are robotized and robots are humanized. I put this down several years ago, and that is what you see is like people are more and more starting to behave like robots, and everybody thinks it's great. And then we get humanoid robots which behave like humans, and we think it's great. But it should be the other way around. And that is that's creating so much misery and sadness and anger and a lot of these sicknesses like cancer or heartaches or ulcers, whatever, because emotions are driving our behavior, and it's not our rational can. It's the emotions who are driving.
Finally, Arnold, we started and I mentioned Aspirin, Addict, or Architect. And I mean, everything that we've discussed is kind of like it's your choice. That's a beautiful title, to be honest, by the way. That you're using this like it's like you listen to it and you go, ooh, I get it. It's like it's thought provoking.
Well, that is the intent, because I would like to help people get out of that misery, get out of that state where they're not seen, not heard, not feeling good enough. They're tired, they're exhausted, they feel distracted, they're anxious, depressed, or worse. This is the largest epidemic in the world. And one of the main causes is that you don't live your own life. You're living the life of someone else. It's like you buy a dog or a puppy and you train the dog to be a cat. Or you buy a German Shepherd and you train it to be a tackle. If I would say that, Arnold, that's crazy. Who would do that? This is what we do with all the people in our educational system. In a lot of the churches, in religions and spiritual organizations, in workplaces. This is what we do all the time. So I think it's not strange that people are in such a condition. So what I would like to contribute is like, you can get out of that situation. It's not easy, it's not a quick fix, it's not an instant gratification, but if you make that shift from living someone else's life to start living your own life, then your life becomes so much more meaningful. You become flourishing, more interesting. You meet nice people. You really, and you have the feeling like there are not enough hours in a day what you want to do. And that is your choice. That is why a lot of people, they use all because it's like, I don't feel good. I got a headache from my boss and from my wife or my husband or from my children. Or it's like, yeah, then there's, oh, let's do mindfulness. There's nothing wrong with mindfulness, but it's only half an hour each day. So how do you feel the rest of the 23 and a half hours of this day? You get a lot of these exercise, sports. I'm doing that as well. It's really, really important. But if the rest of the day, again, you're only obeying what someone else wants you to do, and you're playing a cat while you're a dog, or you're playing to be employee ABC while you are Roy, that creates the friction and that creates the problems. Yeah, so yeah, you got now obviously a lot of technical. You got technical aspirin there. You put some device on your head. It's like, oh, put it on your head for 20 minutes, and now you're calm. Yeah, but what about the rest of the day? So the aspirin thing is not really helping you. The addiction is also what we see exploding all over the world. And it's not only the traditional exploding like alcohol or drugs. Yeah, I mean, like heroin or cocaine or these things. There's now addiction to medicine, like painkillers, or even that stuff, what they call them, Ozempic, or whatever, which makes you lose weight, or whatever. Yeah, so, but there's also addiction to gaming, to shopping, to social media, to addictions. Well, we all know, I don't need to explain, they're unhealthy. But why do we do these addictions? To escape from a shitty life. I tell you, if you treat your dog as a cat all of the way, your dog will be horribly ill. So that happens with humans as well. It's not strange that so many humans, whether they're young or old or middle-aged, that they all are feeling lousy and anxious and depressed and burnout and cancer, diabetes, you name it. I think it's perfectly logical, because to the extreme, we're living someone else's life. Yeah? There are tech companies who manipulated us to be day and night on those devices. That's pure manipulation. It's not natural. Even these young people, they walk on the street with this thing in front of their face. They even bump into you because they don't know. Yeah? That's not their fault. It's not their fault. It's the tech companies, and they know what they're doing. Yeah? So, and that's also an addiction. I see here, well, everywhere, is like young women, they got a handbag and they're walking, and in the other hand, they got their phone. And I'm like, why don't you put that phone in the bag? Because they don't want to miss 1 second of that. That's addiction. But again, I'm not saying they're stupid or not saying it's their fault. No, it's the tech companies, the big tech companies, who want you on that device day and night. But again, it's addiction. Why do we do that? To escape from a world, to be part of a world which is not ours. So what I want to do is to make people an architect of your own life. What does an architect do? You first plan it, then you build it, you construct it, you create your own life. I had to do that as well. You had to do that as well. It's like, when I was in the beginning of my 40s, it's like asking questions, but Arnold, who are you? What do you want? What do you want to contribute? What do you love to do? I seriously had no clue. I had no clue because nobody ever in my life had asked me that question. Nobody. It was a coach when I was being who asked me, like, yeah, Arnold, you're very good in telling what you don't want. I don't want this anymore. I don't want this anymore. I was just rambling on, like that. By the way, I've been asking this question to hundreds of clients, and they have the same thing. Like, yeah, I don't want to. They all want this. Everybody knows. If I ask anyone, what do you not like? What do you not want anymore? Okay, thank you for sharing. But what do you want? I'm opening my mouth for the guys who are not watching us.
And we can hear the crickets in the background.
But it's like, I had no clue. Isn't that sad? That we live in a society where if someone else, but Arnold, who are you? What do you want? Roy, what do you want? Roy, what are your unique qualities? And it's at your age or whatever. Nobody had ever asked you that question. So the aspirins are only temporary fix. Addiction creates you into a kind of what you think is a permanent fix, but really is destroying you. And the architect is like, hey, I want to build up my own life. I want to follow my own path. And maybe I got to create that path. Like the old explorer in the jungle, and they use their machete knife to cut a path in the forest. That is hard, but that is also extremely rewarding, motivating, inspiring to do. And then you realize, like, I don't need these aspirins. I don't need these addictions because I feel great. So why should I need those? I don't want to be distracted from what I'm doing. Yeah? If you ask a person from fitting in, and they always, and typical with employees, like, what are you going to do for the weekend? Well, the weekend is the only time where they live their own life and not the life of their boss. So for them, the evening, but the evening is mostly very busy, is like the weekend is their time. It's now Monday. I bet how many people have asked you already, what are you going to do the weekend? I think that's sad. It's nice to know what you do the weekend, but the most important thing is what are you going to do for the next 5 days? And you can only start. You don't need a distraction. You don't need anything else if you love what you do. I've been working a large part Saturday and Sunday. And I don't need any alcohol or drugs or whatever to distract me because I love what I'm doing. And people or employees like, oh, what you do? Well, I worked. I actually created the slogan and the stuff or whatever. And they're like, they think I'm crazy. No, you are crazy. I don't need to distract myself because I love what I'm doing. So why would I distract myself? I don't need to numb down things. I need to take painkillers to numb down some emotional pain because I'm doing what I love. I'm helping other people. I'm sharing things with you on the podcast. So hopefully some people are like, that is interesting what that guy is saying. Let's dive into that. Yeah, so that's why I say aspirin, addict, or architect, all a choice. It's your choice.
Beautiful. And I know we've just touched on the kind of 6 subjects there, barely just scratching the surface. So people can go in and get a lot more details on that on the website. But then there's also like a kind of group coaching. You might explain exactly what you cover when they go deep into this.
Yeah, so in addition to call them brain fitness triggers, those are the videos which we superficially addressed. Is I got one training which I call From Fitting In to Flying Out, which is a 15-week program, 19-minute sessions each, and you get homework in between, like the daily rituals already mentioned. But that's just an example, is that where I enable you to move away from living someone else's life towards living your own life. So that's typically for people who are in a midlife crisis, people who are employees and want to do something different, maybe create their own business or maybe their own charities or whatever. Yeah, that is for that group. The second training is what I call From Flying Out to Extraordinarian, which is targeted at entrepreneurs who want to do something game changing, who want to solve like getting fresh drink water everywhere, or want to create an educational system which is based on your unique qualities and not on your sameness. Yeah? Those are really game-changing things. So that is the other training program where I help people from flying out to extraordinary. 15 weeks, 90 minutes, and of course, a lot of work in between because you got to create those new habits.
Perfect. And I believe the website is braingym.fitness.
That's correct, Roy.
Yeah, so listen, Arnold, as always, thoroughly enjoyed our call, and I look forward to having you back again. So that's all for the speaking podcast, the awakening podcast, and the meditation podcast. Be sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rate, and share with your friends, and comment on what we were discussing. We love to read the comments. Until next week, take care. So I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. As mentioned at the start, you'll find my 6 podcasts on bio.link/podcaster. And also, if you'd like to start a podcast or do a podcasting tour, you'll find the information on that or on the QR code that's there. Be sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating, and share with your friends because it really helps. And also, I'd like to thank DanielPackard.com, helping people with fear, doubt, and anxiety. He's got a 90% success rate and he's only charging if he helps you. So be sure to check him out and you get a free call to discuss everything. Until next week, take care.